So, talking about the right answer, is there a right answer in literature? Do we have to write in a certain way? And a lot of questions that I get from students I've taught, as well as from doing these lectures, are to do with what exact structure do I have to do for literature? How many times do I have to include evidence, or views and values or analysis in a body paragraph? But literature doesn't have many rules. There are a lot of norms and things that are considered standard and the right thing to do, but there are very few rules. Examiner's reports specify you do not need to follow a set structure for any of your exam tasks. You do not even need an introduction or a conclusion. However, introductions are quite beneficial, and even if you do not include a conclusion, the text should read as finished. So, bit tricky there. So then we consider those norms, potentially what are safe options, what are things we should always do. Say for developing interpretations, I do want to include critics' quotes, and for an essay structure, I do want to have an introduction and a short conclusion. They will help me rather than hurt me. Unless you write really well and you feel super confident, that your structure is set in stone and it's great. Stick with that. Get feedback on it, and if the feedback for that is, yep, you can do this, this is really good, say from your teacher, continue doing that. But for stacks, the right answers are going to be your teacher's opinions. In literature, our teachers, we know, tend to have very strong opinions on text and really well developed viewpoints on what everything means. So potentially, you would like to incorporate these ideas into your assessments, to impress your teacher and make your teacher happy, but also because, not all teachers are so flexible that they will accept kind of any justifiable interpretation. A lot of teachers may not agree with certain things, so if you would like to stay safe, you might stick to your teacher's opinions as the right answer. However, for the exam, the right answer is going to be any justifiable one. Your interpretation just has to be justifiable, it has to make sense. And this is where, if we do want to spice things up, say for a higher score, we may like to choose a more complicated interpretation. Um, Try to find a nuanced, complicated interpretation to use for an essay, that is likely to advantage us. But anything that we can explain and back up with evidence and sufficient evidence is going to be a valid point. That being said, do not get too outlandish with your interpretations. We do not want anything too far fetched, but don't be afraid to take those reasonable risks and try new things, especially in the lead up to your exam as you practice and prepare. Experiment with a lot of different interpretations you potentially have and see if you can write good essays with those ideas. And you can use qualifiers like perhaps or might in moderation. So we see some example sentence starters here. This could perhaps be indicative of, or this may also be interpreted as, to include additional ideas. So our interpretations, different interpretations, unique interpretations can be included in this way. However, be mindful again to avoid that fence sitting, do not be definitive. So, if you said this is indicative of, this is interpreted as, that would be fence sitting. Trying to be not too definitive in literature is very important, um, because we can only speculate what these intended meanings are.